All right, well, I'm going to preface this. I am not a motivational speaker or a preacher, so bear with me as I get through this tonight. I really just spend my 90% of my life talking to 14 to 18-year-old teenage girls. So just bear with me as I get through this, but there's some things that God has put on my heart, and I'm going to get emotional already. I'm going to just tell you my testimony tonight. And I've never said it out loud before. So when I said earlier, bear with me, this is what I mean. So let me backtrack. He's kind of told you a little bit about my past, how I grew up. I grew up in the most amazing family anybody could, thank you, anybody could ever be raised in. I am a preacher's kid. My grandparents were pastors. My parents, praise and worship leaders, youth pastors, aunt and uncle, children's church pastors. I was raised right, and I had the best childhood that anybody could really ask for. My high school years, I really didn't have problems. I mean, I'm sure we had things going on, but I probably thought my world was ending when I lost a basketball game or teenage girl drama or whatever. I really had a very good upbringing. So fast forward to college, 19, 20. I was blessed to get to go and play college basketball, and I was 7 hours away from home, and it was the first time that life hit. And there were some times that I just strayed away from the things that I knew that I was taught. I got into a relationship, and it was very unhealthy and abusive and toxic. And it just kind of led to a domino effect of different things. It led to sexual sins and sexual assault, and it just kind of started spiraling to an unhealthy relationship with alcohol and just bad decisions. And I lived in that for years because of the guilt and the shame and just different things that I allowed the devil to have a place in my life. It led to bad choices. I hurt people that cared about me. I was living in pain and trying to numb it, and I'm depressed, and I was trying to mask it. I wasn't letting anybody know, even though if you ask my parents, they probably knew all along. But it just became a cycle. I was still during this time of my life in church. I was serving. God was using me. I would be on fire for God for a week, and then I would fall back into a cycle, and then back on fire for the Lord and fall back into a cycle. And it was just repetitive, and it was exhausting to the point where I was just emotionally and spiritually drained. I was angry with God because I kept thinking, okay, some of it was my decisions and it was my fault. But there were other things that happened that led to those things. And it's just been a long journey and process. Recently, I feel like the Lord's really worked on my heart and is restoring things. And I'm not going to stand in front of you and say it's all fixed and all better. But I know that God's working and that the restoration process is starting and has been starting. And I could go on and on in detail about everything, but there's 3 things that I felt like the Lord put on my heart to share with y'all that stems from my story and my journey. I look in here, and there's people in here in all different stages and walks of life and different things going on. So I know my story, not every person in this room is going to relate to, but there's 3 different principles that I feel like that I've learned through my process and my testimony that everybody, no matter where we're at, can relate to. This is my first point, or we can say the stage of my life, when I was in high school and early into my college. I remember my grandpa and my dad always saying, put the word in you when you don't need it, so it's there when you do. And I grew up in church, and I probably have heard that saying 1,000 times, and it got to the point where it was in one ear, out the other. Yeah, dad, pawpaw, talking, preaching, always saying the same thing over and over. But there's so much truth in it. And I'm not saying that I didn't have the word in me when I was in high school, because I was raised in a family where it was put into me whether I wanted it or not. But it wasn't mine. I didn't build myself up in the things of the Lord the way that I should have to prepare for the storms of life. So wherever you're at, my first point tonight is make sure that you are prepared for the storm, because it's life. And I'm not trying to be morbid or a downer, but you're going to have storms. In Romans, it talks about all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And whether your storm is going to be something because you made a bad decision, or just because it's life and it's happening to you because we live in a fallen, broken world, you have to make sure that you're ready to go to battle, whatever that looks like for you. And that's something that I've had to learn for myself. It couldn't be my family's faith. It couldn't be my family's prayer. It had to become mine. It had to become my relationship with the Lord. My second point tonight is this. I talked a little bit about my struggles, my sins, my poor decision making. In the midst of that, God met me more times than not exactly where I was. I was a mess, and he was there. And in those moments, I don't think that I probably recognized it, but looking back, he was there. Probably a huge part of that is just having my family praying for me during those times. Even when I didn't give him the space of the room to be there, he was there. He wants to meet you wherever you're at tonight. Whatever that looks like, he is ready to meet you exactly where you are in your mess. If your mess is just life, he wants to meet you. If your mess is because you made a bad choice, he wants to meet you. Wherever it is, he wants to be right there with you. Allow him. He can use you even in your storm. He can use you even in the midst of your bad decisions, in the midst of COVID, in the midst of whatever's going on. He can use you, but you have to allow him to. And this is my third point. This is probably, if I'm being honest with you, where I'm at right now and where I've been at probably in the last few months. When you make bad decisions, the shame and the guilt and the bondage that you hold on to. His grace is sufficient, and it covers all of it. Whatever it is, whatever your journey looks like, he restores and he redeems. And it may be a process. I think sometimes in church I grew up thinking that you have this one encounter at church and then you're just healed. But more times than not, I'm not saying that doesn't happen because God can do that. But more times than not, it's a journey. It's a process. When everything started happening when Pastor Voles asked me to come speak, he actually messaged me on Facebook, and I don't know how, but I missed it. I did not see it at all. And so I guess it was a couple weeks that passed, and my mom, I saw her, and she was like, I guess y'all ran into each other, and she's told me that he was trying to get a hold of me, that he wanted to ask me to speak. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, like I don't do stuff like that, but okay, I'll reach out to him. So I texted him, he texted me, he called, I missed his call, I called back, it was phone tag for like a week. And if I'm being honest, I was probably trying to avoid and push off so I didn't have to do this. And then got on the phone and he explained what it was and that he felt like the Lord had put it on his heart to have me speak. And I was like, okay, I'll do it, but let me check my schedule. School's starting in August, might be busy that weekend. I said that, did I not? Yes. And I got off the phone thinking, okay, what can I have on a Saturday night for work to get me out of this, right? 2 days later, I told y'all part of my journey of healing is I've been seeking some godly counsel at my church with one of the pastor's wives. So 2 days later, I met with her, and we were talking, and I didn't mention anything about this, but I had mentioned, or we had been talking about some very hard, deep things in my past, and she was giving me some godly counsel in that, and she looked at me and she said, have you ever told anybody? And I said, no. And she told me that the Bible talks about the truth setting you free. So, she had no idea about this, but I, in that moment, was like, I have to do this. And then fast forward to August, and I start preparing, and a couple weeks out, and I literally had the most beautiful, typed out, spiritual message anybody could ever imagine. And I was like, oh, this is good. And in the middle of the night, I woke up, and I am a heavy sleeper. My mom and my dad make fun of me all the time. I can sleep anywhere, any time of the day. I don't wake up in the middle of the night. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I just felt God tugging at my heart. That's not it. So I rewrote a whole new message, beautiful, typed out, organized. I was like, okay, this is it. The next night, the same thing. Did that 3 times. Talked to Pastor Voles last night. I still didn't know what I was going to say. I was fighting it. I didn't want to share my story because nobody wants their reputation or how people view them to be different. He called I called him last minute saying, what time do I need to be there, all of that, and he just totally reaffirmed once again what I needed to do. And now if you look at this, it's handwritten, messy, last minute, figuring out what I'm going to say. And I say all of this to say this. Don't allow that shame and that bondage to not let you share your truth. Whatever that is. My story may not resonate with every person in here, but your story might. Whatever your testimony is and whatever your truth is, be bold about it. Be confident about it and share it. Whatever God has done for you, whatever he's doing for you, forget the perfect perception of what we think we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to look like. God can take every negative situation and turn it around for his good and for his glory. And as I go through my journey and my healing process, that's what I'm believing for. So if you didn't resonate with any of that, this is my one point that I want to drive home. Whatever it is, whether it's depression, sickness, anxiety, personal sin that you're struggling with, whatever it is, let him meet you where you're at. Let him pick it up for you and hold your hand through it, because you're worthy of it and he loves you so, so much. And I just want to say thank you to Pastor Voles for letting me share my story and just give y'all a little bit of what God's put on my heart.